Welcome to this explainer. Today, we're diving into the invisible technique that literally separates a completely stuffed shot from a totally flawless takedown on the wrestling mat. If you're a coach, an intermediate to advanced wrestler, or really a grappler from any combat sport, you already know the mechanics of a basic shot. But what we're looking at today are the hidden dynamics that make those shots actually work when you're up against high-level opponents.
So, let's dive into this mystery. We've all seen it happen, right? Two athletes attempt seemingly the exact same move. The setup looks the same, the penetration step is identical, yet one effortlessly succeeds and finishes the takedown smoothly, while the other, well, they get easily shut down and wind up sprawling face first on the mat. So, what gives?
Now, it's super natural to assume the difference just comes down to brute speed or raw strength. You might be sitting there thinking, oh, well, he just shot faster, or she just powered right through that defense. But the reality is actually way more nuanced than that. Because, let's face it, when you're grappling at a highly competitive level, everyone is fast and everyone is incredibly strong. So the hidden factor that dictates success isn't just physical supremacy, it's a subtle and quite honestly often completely invisible skill.
Here's our roadmap for today's explainer. We're going to start with the takedown mystery, then move into the mechanics of Kuzushi, see what the science actually shows, tackle the teaching challenge, look at applying it in practice, and finally, why there's no single right answer.
All right, let's kick things off with Section 1, the takedown mystery. We really need to look at what makes the decisive difference when two grapplers are physically matched.
So when speed and strength just cancel each other out, the ultimate tiebreaker is a concept called Kuzushi. Now sure, Kuzushi is a Japanese judo term, but it honestly gets right to the very heart of all wrestling. Essentially, it means breaking your opponent's most stable defensive position before you even think about shooting. It's the act of disrupting their balance, compromising their posture, and short-circuiting their mental anticipation to create a genuine opening. It's not some flashy finishing hold, right? It's literally the work you do before the work.
Moving right along to Section 2, the mechanics of Kuzushi.
How do we actually identify these subtle physical movements during a fast-paced match? Well, Kuzushi happens entirely in the setup. You might execute a heavy push just to trigger that pushback reaction, or use a sharp, aggressive pull to drag your opponent right out of their stance. It involves snapping the head down to compromise their posture, or using sophisticated footwork feints to draw reaction and totally mess with their mental timing. Basically, you're forcing them out of their optimal defensive alignment. You're making them step when they don't want to step, or reach when they definitely shouldn't reach.
Let's jump to Section 3, what the science shows.
The absolutely crucial point here is that this isn't just some abstract theory dreamed up in a gym somewhere. It's actually been validated by sports science data. A 2019 study by Ito and colleagues specifically measured the impact of off-balancing prior to initiating leg attacks. And these researchers, they didn't just look at who won the match. They looked at the specific setups used by senior elite wrestlers. We're talking the absolute highest level of the sport, to see what truly yielded results.
And the findings? They were brilliant. Takedowns preceded by Kuzushi are significantly more successful than attacks launched directly. Period. When researchers compared a direct attack with zero setup to an attack launched after actively disrupting the opponent's posture, the data was crystal clear. To put it simply, the higher your competitive level, the more absolutely crucial Kuzushi becomes. You simply cannot shoot cleanly on an elite, perfectly balanced opponent and expect to score. No way. You have to create the opening first.
Which brings us to Section 4, the teaching challenge.
Knowing the science is one thing, right? But transferring that invisible advantage to a living, breathing athlete is a completely different ballgame. The challenge here is that wrestling styles are vastly different. That means Kuzushi looks totally different from athlete to athlete. One wrestler might excel at inside control, disrupting balance from close contact using heavy collar ties and deep underhooks. But another wrestler, they might rely entirely on distance, using space, perfect timing, and lightning-quick footwork feints to draw a reaction out of their opponent. Because off-balancing relies so heavily on your opponent's specific body type and preferred techniques, every single wrestler really has to develop their own personal flavor of it.
All right, let's get into Section 5, applying it in practice.
Because there is no single correct way to do this, just standing on the edge of the mat and yelling at your athlete to break their balance rarely ever works. They usually can't picture what you actually want them to do in the heat of the moment. So we have to rely on concrete, actionable coaching cues. Giving athletes a specific, tangible goal, like forcing a physical reaction, provides a much better mental model right before they commit to their shot. Instead of relying on a vague idea of balance, you tell them something concrete. make him lift his head, or make her step that lead leg back. You're actively looking to disrupt their posture and force a distinct, predictable physical reaction.
Another great way coaches can frame this is around timing. Tell your athletes to literally break the rhythm or tempo of the match. The real beauty of this approach is that even forcing a single, awkward defensive step lays the perfect foundation for off-balancing. Think about it. A tiny stutter step from your opponent means their weight is shifting, their mental anticipation is frantically resetting, and for a fraction of a second, their defense is totally compromised. And that right there, that's your window to attack.
And finally, Section 6, no single right answer.
As we wrap up this explainer, we need a quick reality check on expectations and, most importantly, safety. Let me be perfectly clear. While mastering Kuzushi definitely tends to drastically improve your probability of takedown success, there are absolutely no guaranteed wins in grappling. None. It remains highly dependent on your opponent's specific body type, their personal style, and how well you can adapt on the fly. Furthermore, off-balancing and the resulting takedowns involve some serious high-impact dynamic movements. You must always, and I mean always, drill these sequences on a safe mat under the direct supervision of a qualified coach. Do not try to figure this out at full speed on a hard surface or in your living room. Safety first, always.
I want to leave you with this final thought to challenge your own grappling game the very next time you step onto the mat. Kuzushi might be invisible to the audience in the stands, but behind almost every single successful elite takedown, it is there. So ask yourself, before you attempt your next takedown, what exactly are you doing to move your opponent? What is your invisible advantage? Keep that in the front of your mind for your next training session.